Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bluhdhaven podcast, episode number 70. As always, I'm your host, Balfour and Wong. Today, I'm joined with
Buddy,
and we have a very special guest. Everyone, please welcome Vaughn to the podcast. It would be great if I knew how to speak.
Same.
For our audience, Vaughn, who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Vaughn, yes, and I go by the drag persona name of Jenna Dumay. The do is silent, so Jenna May is fine. Been doing drag for actually a decade now. I just moved to Oregon in 2019, so kind of slowing it down in drag, refinding and recentering myself as of right now, but thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely. So growing up in Tucson, it's been interesting to see the LGBT community grow as much as it has, coming from a young age into, adulthood. And when I moved back to Tucson, you were doing drag shows almost like every month. Like if I remember correctly, there was what was it called? It started with a V, right?
Yeah, it was Vamp.
yeah, that's what it was. I remember seeing a lot of your promos and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you, during your time with Vamp, how did that project come about? What was like the ins and outs of trying to get a drag show monthly out in downtown?
Right. So I actually went to Surly Wench. I had a friend who was working there at the time, and they hooked me up with meeting the owner or bar manager, and they actually were really open to doing a drag show there because they hadn't had one in a really long time. And I was like, I want to do monthly just because I like to save my energy and just bust it in one fat load because that's the way to go.
That's how we go, right?
But yeah, it was pretty cool. At the time, I was just really into alternative drag and still am now. And so at first, what I was doing in drag was a lot of like very basic drag, like stuff you would really standardly see on like RuPaul's Drag Race or something like that. Very like basic shit. And then whenever I created Vamp, I was like, okay, it's going to be anything but basic, but I'm going to tell people don't be a basic witch. That's like that's the parameter. No top 40 was like the only rule that I had.
That's awesome. Yeah. So with, trying to build up a show like that, what are some of like the hardest things to really do, like in terms of trying to get other drag queens to build a show? What kind of entails getting these kind of creative minds to, one, have a persona, right? But two, also trying to create a specific show each month, like what kind of goes into the ins and outs with other creatives in that aspect?
That's what I really like about drag is you just meet so many different people and different types of creative people. Whenever I started Vamp, the whole premise was I really don't care what style of drag you're doing as long as it just breaks the norm of what everyone's seeing. So I was basically trying to like recruit anyone that I saw that was either like starting out or just was kind of fitting the mold of what I was looking for, essentially, if that makes any sense at all. And so it was a lot of like finding people through Instagram as well as just like in person through the gay community itself. And then once I kind of was like, all right, this is what we're doing, it just kind of was like pulling people in one by one. And then we kind of created a like, almost like a cast rotationally, but it took like a really long time to get there, I would say.
Oh yeah, no, I can only imagine trying to, fit acts into a certain amount of time, especially when you're, going to different venues and you having a lot of time and stuff like that. I think a lot of people don't like people who go to shows, they get to enjoy the experience, but they don't really know the ins and outs and like the time constraints for really making this stuff happen. During your time here, is there a particular show that really stood out to you? Like, is there your proudest moment as a producer to like for these shows?
I would definitely say like it was actually a leaving Tucson to kind of like sit back and actually like understand what you're actually saying, if that makes sense. I didn't actually realize what I was doing with Vamp for like, I kind of was just doing what I did. Like I just kind of did things and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was touring to El Paso, Pasco, Washington, like really random things. And I just kind of like had to just kind of do what I was doing and not question it. Like a lot of people were just kind of helping me along the way. A really good friend, Miss Natalia Flores, she's actually who really got me into touring. And then if you've ever heard of Dragula, the very first winner, Vander Von Odd, we actually had Vander. And in this show, it was like literally the scariest show you'd ever fucking like imagine. It was just so much fun to have like all of the Dragula girls in my show. So it was just kind of a collection of iconic parties, one after another. And it just took me a really long time to realize that. So I would have to say not only the whole experience itself, but biggest show, definitely booking Vander. That was a lot of fun to have a show that scale without like, I didn't know I could do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like, I totally get that. It's like you inadvertently did something extraordinary, which you figure out in hindsight. But like at the time, it's like you're going with the flow. You're just wanting to make what you want to make, which is really, really cool. And honestly, I feel like that speaks to a lot of creatives. You know, once you get into that creative mindset, you're really focused on just, you know, this is what I want to do. I just want to make this fun for, you know, for everyone involved. And then in hindsight, you're like, oh, wow, that was actually kind of cool. Like I actually pulled that off and I didn't realize that I could do that. You know, that's actually a kind of a good lesson that I've learned over the years is like, you know, I have a lot of very strong connections. And at this point, I'm now kind of reaching out to those individuals, you know, like for you, for instance, you know, for your stuff, you know, I feel like your shows were very important for the scene here in Tucson. You know, because of your shows, I got in contact with a lot of people that I know from my past, you know, including Tom and Ricky, you know, and people like that. And I think it's a testament to like how large the community here in Tucson is. You know, it really reaches more people than everyone thinks. And I think that's important for, you know, representation with the community here and, you know, just try to expand people's perception of, you know, what drag shows are and what the community is. Cause I know that there's a lot of, you know, misconception from people who don't understand it. And, you know, some people are just put off by that. But, you know, the way that you guys presented your stuff was like, the whole point is to be different and to explore the differences, which is why I really miss, because I was able to go to 2 of your shows and I'm like, damn it, like, I wish there was more of that stuff here. And, you know, because COVID and everything, it's going to be a while before those shows come back in full force. But, you know, I'm really hoping that we see something like that locally again. But, you know, you said that you did move out to Ohio, right?
No, Oregon.
Sorry. But you know, over in Oregon, what is the scene like there? You know, is it equally as welcoming? Is it, you know, very widespread, or do you feel like it is something different for you out there?
It's completely different. For perspective, Tucson has 500,000 people and Eugene has 100,000 people. Ooh. But they're both like college towns. So they're the exact same, like they're both like the whole, they're an hour and a half outside of a huge city because this is outside of Portland. So there's like, it's basically a like Tucson parallel is what Eugene is, but a little bit smaller scale. But the community here, right as I got here, they were actually just having a new bar. And the biggest scene that there is on Thursdays, there's just like a thing called Lip Sync Extravaganza. And it's just literally like karaoke, but like normal people just lip syncing, like literally just lip sync. It's just like anyone being a drag queen at any given moment, basically. And
that's
it's like
really cool.
The coolest community because everyone's really like supportive about doing like literally whatever speaks to them artistly or like whatever they're going through. So we all call it gay church, honestly. And I just did an event on Saturday and that was like what everyone was talking about. Can't wait for gay church to come back.
That's really cool. I think, you know, as someone who also moved away from Tucson, I think, you know, people who want to leave their hometown are always scared because they don't know what's out there, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to kind of have these conversations and, you know, hear you talk about, you know, you went to a different state and are now involved in a community and a show somewhere else, you know, that you weren't familiar with. You went to this, you know, new life, something brand new. Shut up, phone. And that's something that I was trying to do very hard out in LA. It's a huge competition in terms of production and stuff like that. But I think hearing stories about this really inspires other artists, especially here in town, to try to go out there and do something new. I think it's very important as artists to just explore different avenues, because you will be inspired by things that you had no idea would inspire you. That's one of the reasons why I love traveling, and why at a young age, I always told people, like, get the fuck out of Tucson. Like, not in a bad way. Tucson has its own unique charm, but leaving your hometown to experience, essentially a culture shock in some places, you will be open to a different perspective and bring something new. And you can use that as energy for your art. I'm not entirely sure if that has spoken to you, but my question for you would be, do you have that same perspective in terms of that, like being able to expose yourself to something new? And if so, how has that influenced your art going forward?
That's like 100% what I'm going through right now, which is why I moved. I want to say it was around 23, maybe 22-ish, that I was like, I need to get the fuck out of Tucson. And it took me all until 27. So it took like a really long time for me. And now that I'm out here, it's more kind of like refocusing. And like you were saying, I was able to kind of like refind my community. So it's kind of like a testament to like what you can do. And that's kind of something that you made me think of too, was as artists, I feel like a big thing that like about like starting shows and stuff like that, a big part of it is you just have to do it. If it's something that you want or even think of, you can't like wait for someone to ask you to do it, or like wait for the opportunity to present itself. It's like you have to create your own opportunities. Like that's just the life we live in, and it's extremely hard, but very satisfying once you do it.
Oh, I could not agree more. We've talked about it on the podcast now that like 4 months ago, I finally created the company, for us to do this full time. Mm-hmm. And, I was lingering for months and months on the idea of it because, of the uncertainty of it, being a business owner and dealing with a lot more than just creating content. But, ever since then, doing this full time, it is definitely changed my perspective on how we create content in a better fashion. Like I am worried, but I'm also excited because of all the stuff that we're able to do. I have pushed myself to do new things because I've always talked with people about like, hey, this would be a cool idea. Why don't we try this? With no follow through. And it's gotten to the point where I'm like, well, you know what? I don't care if you want to do this. I want to do this. So you can either join me or I can find someone else. And I've kind of put that into like my everyday life as well, not just speaking of projects, but like with cooking and stuff like that, I'll see food like on Instagram or something and be like, that looks good. And I don't want to pay $30 a plate for that. I can make that at home. Mm-hmm. Or, with our table that we have, I always wanted to get a gaming table, but they're fucking expensive. And I was like, well, I can make it. Like that's something that I guess I've learned over the last few years is like, if you see something and you want it, you can make it. If you don't see something out there on the market that's not available, you can make it. Like it's all about your perseverance and making something for yourself. And like I said, I've tried to put that into my daily regimen to be like, make a point to just continue doing things that may not be available to us because, we live in a capitalistic society and it's all about making money and stuff like that. But, as artists, we always have this very, our ego is too strong where it's like, we can do better. Like we know we can do better and we want to create better. At least that is for me. I'm not sure how it is for other people, but it's like, if it's not out there on the market, make it yourself because if you like the stuff that you're making, there's going to be someone else out there that does. There's a shit ton of people out in the world.
Yeah, there is.
But enough about me. Something you were saying though that it kind of brought up is also not only if you want something, make it, but if you also can't make it, use your resources of your actual community around you is also something really important. That's something that kind of like I realized here. a big kind of situation happened up here with my girlfriend being incarcerated by the police. And like the first thing I did was turn to my community and I was like, hey, I need help. And a really good friend of mine, like, kind of swooped me up like a little baby and was like, we're going to get you some resources. We're going to like make this happen. And they ended up getting me the correct resources to actually get bail money to like get her out within a few days, which kind of sucked that she had to be in there for so long. But I'm glad that she's out and she's safe now. But using your resources is a really good thing to do,
Yeah,
especially artistry.
That is something that I've always had a hard time with. You know, kind of going back on the sense of ego is like asking for help, you know, reaching out to your community. It's something that I've learned over the years, and it's something that I am very fortunate, you know, because for our community, we wouldn't be able to do anything if we didn't have the support of our community. You know, we have a lot of individuals who are not you know, forward facing and stuff like that, but we have a lot of viewers who, you know, who are very passive. You know, people who like supporters who are passive, who buy our merchandise, who, you know, jump into the streams and donate and stuff like that. So like talking about community, like your community is the backbone of an artist. Like you cannot do anything if you don't have your community to back you up. And it's not just talking about art. You know, the LGBT community is a community of individuals. You know, it's not just artists. You know, it's people who are in law school, doctors, you know, all of these individuals. And finding a community that really fits your personality is always hard. You know, talking back when I was a teenager, like I always felt I didn't fit in with any type of group. I didn't fit in with the jocks. I didn't fit in with, you know, the anime nerds. I always felt separated from a lot of stuff. And I made a point to kind of create my own community because I felt more comfortable with people that challenge me, you know, people who challenge me to look at things differently and stuff like that. So I am fortunate for our community because it's something that I haven't been in before. And it feels good, you know, and for those who don't know, you know, I am bisexual, and being a small part of the LGBT community is nice. Though I am standoffish just because don't feel I don't feel like the community itself is who I am, if that makes sense. I'm not bashing any type of community. I'm just saying for me personally, that the community, I love the community, but I still have that feeling of
outside looking in.
Yeah, like it's not my community, if that makes sense.
There's a lot to why you feel that way, and it's a lot of like the gay community is so like specific, and it only caters to like a certain like aesthetic, and it's usually like cis gay men who are like a very like small, it's just a very like specific community. And that's why like I identify more as like part of like the queer community, which is very outside of like that type. It's not the very like everyone looks very pretty, everyone's a little like muscle gym rat and shit like that. And so what you're kind of like describing is literally like what is the biggest issue with the queer community is the like, I don't know if like the word is even like elitism or like what it like really truly articulates, but it's like almost like a weird like heteromasculinity of like weird, some people just don't want to deal with that. And that,
yeah, because I kind of wanted to ask you like your perspective on that. You know, I don't get to have conversations like this very often, unfortunately. And, you know, for me, I feel like that's the reason why I wanted to have you on, is to have this kind of open discussion. You know, as someone who's in the community, do you like, is that a very difficult thing to deal with? Because I always read articles and stuff about, you know, like people within the community kind of segregating themselves and putting them in, you know, specific groups, you know, within the umbrella. Like,
literally is like the LGBT is literally like every word is it's like click almost. And it's like the thing that's kind of fucked up is like the predominant what you see in like mainstream media is like gay men right now and how like acceptable it is to be a gay man. But then there's all the different I think the my good word might be for it, just intersexualities, the different personalities of people aren't as accepted. Like trans women, like if they go to a gay bar, that's not always the safest place for them because gay bars are sometimes extremely transphobic. Like, it makes zero sense, but that's like the whole point of why there's a difference between like the gay community and then like the queer community. And I feel like the queer community is everyone who just doesn't identify as like a cisgender gay, being like someone who is aligned with their gender at birth, basically.
Right.
So it's just people who are more ostracized, like people I would say like yourself are more like in the queer-ish community. There's people who don't go to the mainstream of what gay is, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm totally hearing what you're saying. Like, if I'm putting this in perspective, like, you know, like you're talking about like mainstream media, like there is a specific aesthetic and specific thing that is portrayed, but you know, that's not necessarily what the individuals in the community feel. And I feel like that's a big disconnect, you know, between representation and stuff like that. And that kind of also ties into like even, you know, like Chinese representation, like representation in media in general is always, you know, hyper sexualized, and always kind of misses the mark on a lot of stuff. And that's why I'm happy that a lot of individuals, like, I feel like our generation is very much kind of putting stuff forward for, you know, the younger generation and kind of pushing for reform, pushing for equality, and really trying to become a stepping stone for progress. I strongly feel like our generation has done a lot in terms of that. And I'm hoping that we can do more because, you know, I want to be able to just casually have a conversation and be like, hey, you guys want to go to the drag show? And no one blink an eye about it. You know, I still know people to today who, you know, if I sat that at the table, they'd be like, why the fuck would I go there? Like,
because it's fun.
That's not me. And it's like, but you go to Broadway.
What's
it's like the whole point of the show.
A misnomer. People just have no idea what a drag show is. I like for years think my dad thought that I was like some sort of stripper. Like straight up. Like, for one, yes, I basically am a stripper, but like I'm not actually. Drag just, it's like such a weird guise because it's like I am wearing like head to toe disguise, like head to toe. So like for me, it's like a character. It is, like you said, Broadway. It's not real. It's fantasy. Like you're literally going to see something that's like hyper glamour, like, or hyper whatever the show's theme is. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. People who are like, oh my God, drag queens. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I was reading to a child and then got yelled at. Like,
yeah, it's a very interesting, like, honestly, like, I feel like it's an interesting character study of like individuals in society because like there's this false pretense of what shows are. And it's like, if you actually go to, like, because I can guarantee you majority of people who actually go to a drag show are like, wow, this is fun. You know, there's a documentary on Netflix, I think. It was about three drag queens who like travel to like Midwest.
Are you talking about Tu Wong Fu?
Huh?
Are you talking about Tu Wong Fu?
I think that's what it's called.
Oh, okay. That's a movie.
Like,
that's not a documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a documentary.
It's not a documentary?
It's a movie. It's a movie.
That's awesome.
With Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, and John Leguizamo. Those are the three characters. Those are the three actors that are in that. Wait,
movie. No, it's not a movie because it's no.
There is an actual documentary.
No, there's actually a because it's like they go to different cities in the Midwest. It's like 4 episodes long, and like it's about these three queens who travel and like get you know, one of the individuals from the town to go and start a drag show, and it's about like how the town's community deals with. Like this whole thing, like it's interesting. I can't remember the name of it. I have to look it up.
Interesting.
It sounds like a documentary of like a live action Tu Wong Fu, which I'm about. So
yeah, no, I'll try to find out what it was because me and B watched it like a few months ago and we found it very interesting.
If you haven't watched Tu Wong Fu or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, you should watch it because what you just described were the plots of two different movies that are the exact same. They're both like, let's do road trips in drag. Yeah. Plotline, transphobia and gay panic.
Oh man. One of the things that, because for like the past few weeks, B and I have actually been watching like early 2000s comedies and holy shit, they do not age well. Like the amount of like homophobia that are in those movies is hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Like movies that I thought I liked when I was younger, I was like, ooh, nope. The subcontext here is like really, really bad.
A lot of
but
like transphobia in that too, just like gay panic in general. But
Yeah.
that's like, I didn't realize this, but I don't know if you know this, but like horror, like villains are like used as like a gay allegory, like
Yep.
werewolves. I didn't like kind of catch on to that, like because they're creatures of the night, they're
Mhm.
repressed, they're not seen against society. I literally heard this and I was like, are you fucking, I like shook my butt, threw it around and just like was like, okay, I need to reassess my entire childhood. What was going on? Why was I so goth? This makes so much sense. It's like, and then it leaks into my own, like, so Jenna, I always like, I don't know if you've caught on to this is like the vibe that I like to do, but I like making her look like a super villain. Like it is funny to make your drag persona look scary because of what you were just saying about your friends being afraid to go to a drag show. Is, you know me, and I'm not scary in the slightest. I am like the opposite, but I just feel like that's like the thing that's funny about it is those people also who are like afraid of it probably either just don't do much in their life of like risk taking, or it comes down to like the systematic problems that we have. And part of it is like what's fed to us in media, like our literal American propaganda that we're like consuming. Like homophobia was in our media because we thought it was funny and okay. Like how people treated Britney Spears in 2007. It was okay at that time. But now we're like, no, your mental health is a thing.
Yep.
So it's like all connected.
And honestly, like, you know, kind of touching on mental health, like I am so thrilled that now, you know, in the early, you know, 2020s, there's so much talk about mental health. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot to do in terms of that. But, you know, growing up, it was always hard dealing with depression, you know, dealing with my own mental illness. It sucked. It sucked because you couldn't talk to anyone about it. Like even talking to your friends, you got fucking ridiculed for that shit because kids are assholes. We've talked about this many times. Kids are fucking assholes. Like when you're 12 years old and you want to tell your friend like, hey man, you know, like I don't feel good about myself. They're just going to be like, yeah, well, go eat a pizza. You know, like it's gonna be something that's like not inherently good, but like it's nice that now that so many parents are, you know, very aware of how to deal with this. There's a lot of people talking about mental health, and it really does fill my heart because now I know, like, you know, my cousins who are growing up now, they have resources that I didn't know that were available when I was a kid. And they're, you know, my cousins thankfully have that, and they have people who understand that because they dealt with me. You know, my family is pretty close, and during my teenage years they got to witness firsthand a teenager dealing with mental health, and now they can use that experience to help their children. So like I'm happy that, you know, what I dealt with is second-handedly being used to help other kids, and that is what I'm happy about. And I hope that, you know, a lot of, you know, parents, because now we have a lot of parents who listen to our stuff, because like now we're getting older and people are having kids.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. But you know, I hope this kind of resonates, and you know, you guys kind of take into account that, you know, your mental health is not black and white. There are many things that can happen to a child when they're younger, and it's okay to ask for help. I think it's the biggest thing that a lot of people need to get over is just, it's okay to ask a professional. It's okay to get diagnosed. It's okay to try to figure out a possible solution or remedy for you to progress and, you know, thrive in your life. You know, a lot of adults still deal with that. I know adults who are old, super old, who refuse to go ask for help. But it's okay. I think one of the themes of this episode of the podcast is ask for help when you need it. It's okay, because you're better off asking something and, you know, possibly getting an answer rather than continuing to live a life of uncertainty and never know.
Yeah.
But on a lighter note, you know, circling back to, you know, the drag shows and stuff like that, if someone wanted to get into drag, what do you think would be the first step?
First step definitely is yourself and getting yourself into it. A lot of people do this thing where they're like, I need a drag mom. I need someone else to help me do it. You don't need anyone else to help you do it. You need to do it yourself. Research on YouTube, look up makeup, see what it is that you want in your personality to show other people. But also, like, keeping it true to yourself is just because you see other people are doing A, B, and C, you learn the rules and then you break them. Like, figure out what other people are doing and then make it your own. Don't come into the community and like be one person and change everything. Like, your drag persona to me is take all of your emotions and throw them onto the stage. People are going to see you as an artist. They don't want to see someone else. It's okay to be inspired by what other people are doing, but your ideas in the core itself need to be your own. So if you don't have those types of ideas yourself, like, really, like, ask yourself why you're doing it in the first place. Like, if you want to go dress up as Trixie Mattel for Halloween, girl, do that. But like, don't get into drag just to take up space because you just want it. Like, you have to want it for yourself and also to like spread a message. Like, people are going to be looking at you. People are going to like literally be paying attention to the words that come out of your mouth. I don't know why, but people see something covered in makeup and they're like, oh my God. Like, literally, if I could give people my lens of life of what it looks like to be a drag queen, it is like weird. It is probably the equivalent of being a Disneyland character, but like, I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't expect to be goofy. People coming up to me and being like, oh my God, now close your eyes. Okay. Oh, wow. Now take a picture with my dog.
You're like, okay.
Okay. Your dog has 3 legs and I think he's cute. Let's take a picture. That literally happened the other day.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. No, I mean, you know, I know a lot of people, you know, don't get to actually have strong conversations like this. So, you know, first of all, I just want to thank you for taking the time for, you know, talking to us about this. Buddy, do you have any questions for Vaughn?
That's a very good question. Actually, I don't think I do. Well,
No.
this is all just, it's an interesting thing well, because I'm used to watching stuff on YouTube that kind of go into this a little bit, but actually now being able to sit down and then just listen and all this is just, it's a very interesting experience. And I do have questions, but it's just more of just like trying to put them all together for right now. But okay.
So do you want a minute? That way you can figure out the questions?
Probably, okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, our show is also, you know, doesn't really specify anything else, but I do know that you are a video game player. So we can talk a little bit about video games. You know, what is your favorite video game?
Yes. Good question. So right now, my girlfriend actually just got a Switch, so my basic ass is just loving Splatoon 2 right now because I don't know, something about slinging paint around, it just resonates with my gay ass. Like, I'm like, ooh. And also there was a TikTok about how gender euphoric the characters are because of how non-binary they are.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't really look gendered. They just don't.
Which is very interesting. Because the characterization is very what's it called? Stylized. So it's like, it really is hard to tell like if someone is or isn't, which I think is actually really cool, you know, like, because then it, you know, reverberates with a lot of people in the community, which is really cool. I've never played Splatoon 2. I played Splatoon 1 for like 2 seconds.
I don't even know what the difference would be, so I can't tell you.
And I started spraying stuff on the floor for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, this is interesting. I get why people like it, but I don't think this is my game.
Good. I will say though, the game that I was kind of binging for like a good few months was, I did just recently get into No Man's Sky, and holy balls, I love it.
It's a pretty game.
It's so much fun. Just smoke a lot of weed during the cutscenes, and just you get to just, I don't know, it's just fun. It's
is it still exclusive to? Oh no, it wasn't exclusive. wasn't it exclusive to PlayStation?
No.
For a hot second, but they did release it to everything.
Oh, they did?
It's
Okay.
like cross-platform now, and it was like whenever it got released, apparently it had all that flack, but now they've done a whole bunch of different cool things, like Twitch drops, which I was like, okay, hold on. I need to, like, after watching all of the men that I had to watch do No Man's Sky, I was like, I need to watch a faggot doing No Man's Sky, and that needs to be me, I think.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, because I mean, I played No Man's Sky when it first launched, and I was like, oof.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way a lot of games nowadays are. Like, I feel like vanilla launches like are just bad. Like, because I feel like they have an idea of the game, but then, you know, when it's released to the public, everyone really shits on it hardcore. Kind of like Cyberpunk. Like when Cyberpunk first came out, like people shit on it hardcore.
Yeah.
And then like now you have all these updates and stuff like that kind of mold and change the game. And actually we've talked about it before, but Destiny kind of had the same thing where vanilla Destiny was bad. And then, you know, after expansion, things kind of change. And I feel like it's such a weird time for video games where it's like that is the norm.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah,
like,
I'm really sick of that. Like, they need to, for me personally, like, I get Warcraft, like how World of Warcraft was done, how there's like expansions for a game that's like continuously going.
yes.
But I feel like it's a money grab now. And it's like
absolutely.
a capitalism thing. And it's like, okay, how about you just wait for releasing your game?
Like,
and
just look at all the season passes for every game, you know? It's like, what? Like, I get it, because, you know, again, we're talking about it, it's a business, but it's like, going back to like the World of Warcraft thing, even like World of Warcraft vanilla, it was a full game. Like it was an entire game. They already had everything there. They had patches, but that was more like connection stuff. And then there was expansions. But like all of these games that are coming out, it's like, oh, this is like really fucked up. We'll fix it in like 3 months. And it's like, okay, but why wasn't that fixed like during your QA sessions and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. It's rough for me because at this point, like I just wait for games like 6 months after release, because also they're hell of a lot cheaper. Like if you want everything in a content bundle, it's like $100 for everything. And it's like, well, you know, I'll wait for the Steam spring sale or whatever for it to be like 75% off. It's just it's a really weird time for games and to be a consumer in this space, because like the market is just so topsy-turvy. But yeah, I don't know. I just, you know, games, man. We always circle back to games.
Yeah, we do. We always do.
But did you figure out your question?
Okay, yeah. So I remember now when we were talking about the whole like the mainstream media like displaying certain things and all that. Would there be something that you personally, or just something you would like to see be improved or be more explained on, or shown more in a different light?
Actually, so like for me, I actually want to talk about a little bit about this, because I was talking to my friend not too long about it. And I'm not sure how you feel about it, but this is just my perspective on it. I want more inclusive characters that don't need to be explained.
Okay.
Like I don't want to have, you know, a trans or gay character come on screen and then you have to explain that they're gay. I don't want there to be the conversation of like, you know, a tragic backstory of this person or whatever. I just want there to be a character that is interesting, who embodies and like that community. That's for me. Like I just want there to be, you know, a regular bisexual person and just be nonchalant. Actually, Schitt's Creek did a very good job of that. I'm not sure if you've seen Schitt's Creek. But
I don't know what part you're talking about specifically, but I've seen parts of it.
Well, yeah. So there's a couple of characters in the show that, like, for me, really embody what I'm talking about, because it's not hypersexualized or overly explained. There's a bisexual character who literally comes in and just kisses everybody, and like, because it's like his confidence, and everyone understands it. He's just like, it's like whatever, you know. And everyone in that community is just like, oh yeah, that's so and so. Like that's his thing. Like, to me, that's good representation, because you're not over explaining anything. The characters in the world understand who the person is and respects that. And that's where I come from. You know, that was actually one of my biggest problems with Supergirl, is like, I felt like those characters were really shoved down in the audience throat. And for me, I don't think that is a good representation, because I feel like that is the complete opposite of the propaganda that we've had before. It's like you're fighting one with the other, and to me, that's not okay. But Vaughn, what is your perspective on this?
I think I totally agree with you, Balfour, and that it should be like more casual, that characters are part of like a different community, that they're not just the typical like boring people, basically. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It makes me think of something that I didn't realize also. I've been on, I don't know, things have been popping up in my timeline real weird. But if you've watched Mean Girls, a character that's gay that you like, it took me until also this to realize it. Regina George is gay.
Yeah, because there's the whole situation with her and her best friend, right?
Yeah.
And she pulls the Hey Arnold, and she's Helga, and she's super mad, and she's like super angry. And at the end of the movie, she's now a lesbian doing lacrosse. And that's like about that. It's like, it's funny because it's like the big thing that I've been seeing is that it's like I'm opening my eyes to realizing that there's a word for it. I forgot what it's called, but they basically, in a really long time ago, banned being gay from TV. And how they started making it in there was by making the villain have effeminate or queer qualities. So like Ursula the Sea Witch is very butch, very flamboyant, and very effeminate villain men. Like that's why I was putting all these like dots together, and I'm just kind of like, we need to take the realization that these people that we're villainizing, they're not villains. Like trans people aren't villains. They're not doing anything to get to see you in a bathroom, that bathroom bills, like all this stuff that's going on, this discourse of like kids getting like blocked for like estrogen blockers, like testosterone blockers, stuff like that. Like it is like really sick right now, because that media that we've been consuming showing that these gay people are villains is literally like the same thing that we've been talking about like this whole time. It's just people villanifying it. But then whenever you look at who these true villains are, they're the people that are the exact opposite, like boring ass white people who are pedophiles. Great.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, because like I feel like there should be more conversations about that, and I know that there are. It's just that it's not widespread. You don't get that like national attention, and that's, to me, is where the problem is that there's so much going on in the world, but not enough of the right information is being showcased. And that's why I'm not sure if you have watched him, but I always watch Phil DeFranco, and I have for years, because at least with Phil, I've seen his transition from like being a very hardcore conservative to being more open-minded. And I think now his new show really dives into important issues, and really talks about news that a lot of people are not talking about. And that's how I get my news, because he's extremely unbiased. I mean, like when he's covering news stories, and I feel like main broadcasters need to do this, bring a story and talk about the story. You can have an opinion, which I totally understand, but make sure that the story itself has the facts. Don't do what Fox News does. And they did a story about Snow White, because there was one person who was talking about their new ride and how the kissing scene at the end is like unconsensual and whatever. And Fox News read this one article, this single article. No one else talked about this. And Fox News ran with it. And they're like, millennials are trying to cancel Snow White, blah, 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 blah. And it was this huge news story. I think it was like 2 days ago. And that, to me, is what the problem is with, modern broadcasting news, because you're taking a snippet of information, but then exploding it to something way worse than it is. And then it overshadows really important information, like the train accident that happened down in Mexico, or, a couple of murders that have already happened further on the East Coast. It's like, it sucks because we live in a world of information, but things are being put in our face that really don't matter. And, hopefully
that's propaganda in itself. Distraction techniques so that you're not paying attention to the actual problem. And like literally.
Yeah, by definition.
One of my favorite news sources is the Young Turks, if you've ever watched them.
Oh, yeah.
They're really good as well, because their point of view is more so the like this is what is good for everyone, not just you, is
Mhm.
kind of, I feel like, what their take is it's not just about one person, it's about the many. And that's kind of why I stick with them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Because I honestly, for me, I kind of live in that same mindset of like, why wouldn't you do things for the benefit of everyone else? Like my problem has always been like, why are we putting in bills that are only helping specific individuals? Like, why are we not, signing stuff for the community as a whole? Whether it's like putting more funds in education or infrastructure and stuff like that. Instead, we're doing like tax breaks for the top 1%, which I can go off forever, but it does suck because it's like I think again for our generation we're trying to drive that point of like inclusivity and trying to help a lot of people who've been needing help for years, and it's only now that a lot of people are getting pissed off at it. Looking at you, Ted Cruz.
It's mostly our system that we're part of as well, is it's literally got to throw it all away, because even in the democratic side is it's not truly democratic. It's neoliberal as fuck. And if you don't know what neoliberalism is it's literally just Republican in disguise. Is it's people just doing stuff for money and for greed. They're not doing it for other people. And that's why I'm just really kind of like, okay, cool. Yay, Joe Biden, because exact same thing that we had with Obama. Obama was like, great as a facade, but like what he was actually passing and what was getting done, it wasn't actually helping the working class. And that's like what our generation is doing, is pulling the wool off of the eyes of the older to say, do you not realize what Republicans actually vote for? And none of it deals with you, the working class.
Yep. And that's why it's interesting, because we don't typically get political on here, but I feel like politics is very important to talk about, especially people our age, and younger, because voting is very important. But talking about the way that the system works, in itself, it's very broken. Like the system itself is very broken because it's so old, and there hasn't been new ideas to be put in place for the system. We're stuck in a two-party system, which that alone is going to cause issues. It's always going to cause issues the further we go down the line. And it's going to be hard, for the LGBT community to continue to try to get equal rights, especially with different states, because there's essentially, it's going to be an ongoing battle for a while. Thankfully there are bills that were passed, on the federal level, but there are still a lot of work to be done. That was just a stepping stone to hopefully, a society where we can finally be inclusive in all rights. But maybe taking a step back from politics for a little bit. Are there any other questions that you have for Vaughn while we have her?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up right here. Does anyone have any recommendations for TV, movies, or anything like that? I have my recommendation.
I think I was watching this before I came over here, actually, when I was doing my appointment, which was Defiance.
What is Defiance?
Defiance has I can't remember the newer Bond, something Daniel Craig.
Oh, Daniel Craig.
And I forget the other one's name, where they play Polish brothers.
I've seen this movie. Yeah. It's so this is the synopsis. In 1941, Nazi soldiers are slaughtering Eastern European Jews by the thousands. Three brothers manage to escape and take refuge in the forest where they played in their childhood, seeking a way to avenge the deaths of their loved ones. It's a good movie.
It's based off of a true story.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Definitely check that out. My recommendation is going to be Mortal Kombat. I've watched it 4 times already. It's so fucking good. They're going to be making sequels, so I'm very excited. If you haven't watched Mortal Kombat yet, watch it on HBO Max or go to a movie theater if you're vaccinated. But Vaughn, do you have any recommendations for the audience?
Yes, I did talk about it earlier. I would definitely say make sure you watch Dragula. Dragula was a big influence for what I was doing back in Tucson. Such a fucking great drag show, or drag TV show, to show you the different types of art that are out there, as well as also a TED Talk that is one of my favorites. But look up The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's a very basic concept that when you use it as a stepping stone for your life, it can be really helpful as an artist, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I hope everyone really took in everything that you said on this interview, because I took in a lot. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll be back next week for another episode. So thank you.